Welcome to Listesso Tempo on KXSF LP San Francisco, 102.5 FM, San Francisco Community Radio. This is DJ Fari. I'll be with you for the next 2 hours. Today's show begins with a conversation I recorded over Zoom with pianist Gila Goldstein and composer Ronn Yedidia to talk about their brand new album, 24 Preludes of Dusk and Dawn. But before we get to the interview, let's hear the piece that opens the collection. So here is Prelude number 1 by Ronn Yedidia, performed by Gila Goldstein from the album 24 Preludes of Dusk and Dawn. That's a brand new release. And that was Prelude number 1 from 24 Preludes of Dusk and Dawn, performed by Gila Goldstein, music of Ronn Yedidia, from their new album that came out in February 2025. And as I said earlier on, I had an interview with the two of them last week. This was done over Zoom, and I will be listening to that right now. We'll be also hearing several of the preludes throughout the interview. My guests today are pianist Gila Goldstein and composer Ronn Yedidia, here to talk about their new album, 24 Preludes of Dusk and Dawn, a rich and evocative cycle just released on Albany Records. Gila, Ronn, thank you so much for being here on Listesso Tempo on KXSF, San Francisco's Community Radio. This is DJ Fari, and I'm really excited to dive into this project with you.
Pleasure to be here.
Nice to be here. Thank you.
Thank you both. Gila, your international career as a pianist has taken you to some of the world's most prestigious stages, from Lincoln Center and the Kennedy Center to the Konzerthaus in Berlin and the Musée du Louvre in Paris. You're also a dedicated educator, and you're currently on the piano faculty in Boston, right?
Yes, at Longy School of Music.
That's right. It's a pleasure to have you here. And Ronn, your career is remarkable, from being a child prodigy pianist in Israel to earning your doctorate in composition from Juilliard and having your works performed by leading artists worldwide. It's an honor to have you both here. So let's start at the beginning. How did this collaboration come about? Can you tell us how this started and how did the idea of the album first take shape?
Yes. First of all, I will start by saying that our friendship began many years ago, 36 years ago. I mean, Ron and I met in New York, and and I have actually performed, as far as I remember, about 9 of his pieces before the Preludes. I performed and premiered other works by Ron since the mid 90s, so it's not a new collaboration. And in 2021, I believe it was in the late fall of 2021. Ron told me that he just completed writing a cycle of preludes, and I knew that I'm going to play a recital a few months later in Boston at my school in 2022. And I told him that I want to meet and see. I would like to look at the new material, and I would like to choose a couple of preludes to premiere at that recital. So this is actually how it began. We met, and Ron brought me his notebook. Ron, at least for many years, he writes by hand. Actually, not with computer. He brought me his notebook, and I started to read, just to read, and we ended up spending some I don't know, maybe an hour or more. I mean, I read many of the preludes, and I immediately knew that I would love to choose a couple of them to play in that recital. And then I said to Ron, well, I think we have to record this cycle.
Great. So, Ron, can you describe your compositional process for these pieces? Did you write them all at once, over a period of time? And how did you choose the name and the names of all the sort of movements?
Well, it might be important to understand the background and the timing of them coming about. It was right at COVID, when COVID-19 struck the world.
Okay.
And so things were changing. We were all very affected by that. And if you all remember the lockdowns and people going indoors and reconfiguring the ways of operating, that. So, I found myself in a more domestic situation than usual. And at a time in my life where there was a lot to reflect upon, looking back and also trying to understand what's going to come our way looking forward. And I am a night person. I'm a night owl. Most of my work is done between dusk and dawn.
Okay.
And it's been like that my entire life. So with all of that information going in and the change in vibration around the world, there was a calling for something which is both definitive and introspective at the same time. And it just bubbled. It started bubbling in me that need to write a series of short pieces, because preludes are normally short pieces that would be evocative and in line with all those thoughts and feelings and dreams and hopes, whatever that is. Personally, it was also the time when my mother was in a process of dying. Actually, it was the end of her life. And I also felt a sense of dedication to her, because I was very attached to her. And it was a very seminal moment in my life. And I felt the need to express something which is to do with closing that cycle. I lost my father many years ago, but it was, it was a very definitive moment. And I was starting to write them in April of 2020. And they went slowly. My mom was in a process of dying, so I was not really always liking to compose. And then I was, I think, up to number 4 when she passed away. And I had a trouble with number 4 because it was modulating from key to key. And I thought that I was going the wrong way. So I let it go. But something about her passing relinquished the answer.
Okay.
And soon after she went, I just let it flow, going to the other key, understanding that sometimes preludes can be written in two keys, doesn't have to end the way it started. And from then on, it was a straight ride pretty quickly to the end of it in March of 2021.
Gila, were there particular preludes that resonated with you more personally, or, had a unique interpretive challenge?
Yes, there were a couple of preludes that there was a very, very strong immediate chemistry. First of all, the very first one,
Yeah, which
right
we
away
heard.
when I remember reading the first prelude and just feeling so much at home. I mean, I think perhaps there is also a little bit of a Ron in that prelude. There is an influence by the Israeli song style. I mean, the Israeli folk or I mean, art song. I would say more than just it's a little bit more than just popular song, but.
And pop together, Gila. It's art and pop together because the unique thing about Israeli song, people have to understand, the art song is not classical song in Israel. It is really the popular song that most people were listening to at the time.
Yes. And then two more preludes that I must mention also that I had a very special chemistry, like immediate chemistry with them. And by the way, don't get me wrong, because I really love them all. I think they are remarkable. But number 13 and number 14. For 13, 14, it's a pair that I just I just adore. I mean, they're extremely special. Now, as far as interpretive challenges, I mean, there are a couple of preludes that are extremely virtuosic, and definitely it was challenging to work on few of them. I mean, like the number 17 and number 24, especially they are remarkable, and they are extremely virtuosic. Those preludes, Ron is not just a pianist but a virtuoso. So his writing reflects his playing, and so that's anyone who needs to encounter his piano writing, and of course we'll have to take into consideration that there is a lot of technical challenges.
And you're totally
but
up
but
for
they're
that.
very rewarding.
And definitely you have the talent to meet those challenges, I know very
Thank you.
well. So would you, how about we listen to a couple of those preludes of your choice?
Before the
Right.
okay, so 4 and 6, I think 4 and 6
Okay,
will be
4 and 6.
By the way, I just want you to mention that number 4 was dedicated directly to my mom, and it's called Rose in the Garden, and that's the one through which all this drama that I just described went through when she passed in the middle of it.
We just heard Prelude number 4, Rose in the Garden, and Prelude number 6, Winds of Destiny, from 24 Preludes of Dusk and Dawn, music of Ronn Yedidia, performed by Gila Goldstein. And since today's show falls on Mother's Day, it feels especially fitting to play the Prelude number 4, Rose in the Garden, which composer Ronn Yedidia dedicated to his mother. And I will also take the opportunity to wish a happy Mother's Day to all moms. Let's listen to the rest of the interview.
There's the element of Hollywood in some of them. Movies, and the dedication to Ennio Morricone in number 7, and then you hear very strong glimpses of Hollywoodian music like in number 20 and all that. So Fantasia number 5 is very much after that.
Yes. Okay, well, so there was this question of how was the collaborative process between you two for this album, like in the recording process, and if you could give me a little bit of detail in that about the process.
We recorded this in three and a half sessions. It wasn't I didn't record all 24 at one time because I needed time to. Some of them I performed before and I knew, but some of them I needed to learn. So basically before each recording session, the first one was in September 2023, I played them for Ron. So we were just working together, and that's how it went. I think we had about 3 or 4 meetings for each recording session, and recorded it throughout that season, actually, from September to 24, and in a wonderful recording studio in New York, in Mount Vernon. We had a wonderful engineer, Ryan Strieber, and so every session took some 3 sometimes 3 to 4 hours.
You're listening to L'Istesso Tempo on KXSF. This is Fari. We just heard 2 more preludes of the 24 Preludes of Dusk and Dawn. We listened to Storm of Fate, which was number 8, and Butterflies, which was number 10, performed by Gila Goldstein, music of Ronn Yedidia. My guests today on a recorded interview over Zoom, and we're going to listen to the rest of the interview.
So, Gila, looking at your past recordings, which include a wide range of repertoire from classical to contemporary, what drew you specifically to 24 Preludes of Dusk and Dawn, and what made you want to bring this particular work into the recording studio?
Well, when I first encountered the Preludes, when I first sight read, I began to sight read the music, it was very clear to me, very, very soon after, that this is a monumental piano cycle that needs to be recorded and needs to be revealed to the public, and especially pianists, because they are not really, since Shostakovich wrote his 24 Preludes, and that was in the 30s. I mean, then he also wrote the Preludes and Fugues. That was 20 years later. But since then, so that was, I think, 1951. Since then, very, very few cycles of 24 Preludes were composed. We are now 70, almost 75 years later after Shostakovich. And I also think that these Preludes are, it's a breath of fresh air in what we call modern music, because I mean, on one, it's really an homage to the great composer. It's very, the piano writing is incredible, and we don't encounter that much of the the this kind of pianistic writing like in the Romantic period in the 21st century, even in half of the 20th century. So I felt like that because actually it resonates with the past tradition, it was so nice to bring that kind of a cycle in the first quarter of the 21st century, to remind us of past tradition and how piano writing really should sound. I mean, it's a cycle that rich in melodies and harmonies in an incredible way, and also influenced by not just Romanticism, but also some of the French music, Russian music, and also some jazz.
Yes.
Because Ronn is also a jazz pianist, so there is a great versatility of styles, and so this is why I thought this must be recorded. And yeah.
And Ron, the cycle obviously includes 24 preludes, which, I was going to ask this question if it was deliberate, thinking of Chopin, thinking of the 24 prelude of Shostakovich, just a number. I know it's a silly question, but...
I don't know what deliberate would mean in the mind of a composer. It's not that, you script an idea and say, listen, you composer, you owe yourself 24 preludes or 24 etudes. It's a lovely thought, because it's been there for that long while. And obviously the 24 preludes of Chopin, Opus 28, it's one of the greatest, for me, the greatest shore piece work ever written as a collection. And the fact that they're written in different keys, and the fact that also in my own musical development, I've come to a point where my music is quite, quite lavishly tonal, as it is now, and I'm having a great time writing melodies, harmonies, and structuring structures that are cohesive, going with them, feeling no any hang-ups or barriers with having to use melody or having to use harmonic progressions in the traditional style. I've learned for a long time now that if you're a real musician, and if you listen to your innermost feelings and ideas, you will also sound authentic. You won't be imitating, or people are very, very wary of that nowadays. Right. If you write a melody, you sound like Mozart, or you sound. First of all, it's not so bad to sound like anybody of that level and stature, even if it sounds similar. And secondly, Look, we've seen it in popular song and in jazz song where people are writing in tonal styles and they do not sound like each other. Each one brings something idiosyncratic. So having that confidence by sheer experience and by natural process of development, I felt very, very easy in sitting down and writing those 24 preludes
24.
in different keys. It didn't turn out to be like the more conservative C major, G major, or C major, A minor,
Right.
G major, E minor, relative minor sort of thing, because we live in modern times, and the things that reside inside the compositional mind and soul are way beyond that now. We have all sorts of modes. I even ran into the need to rename a scale, and I call it the B impressionistic scale. What it is, we can analyze later, but it's comprised several elements that distinguished it from other scales, or I would use the Phrygian mode or things like this. But all in all, I was always in a different tonal center, and that helped conceiving the music and letting it also vary, distinctly one thing from the other. And definitely the romantic and impressionistic spirit is there. Music by Debussy, Ravel, Scriabin, Rachmaninoff, uh, jazz, Hollywood, all those things, folded into it.
You're listening to L'Istesso Tempo. This is Fari. My guests today are Gila Goldstein on piano and Ronn Yedidia, composer. We just heard two more of the preludes that we're focusing on today. Number 13, The Prayer, and number 14, Before the Snow. These are both from the album Yedidia, 24 Preludes of Dusk and Dawn, performed by Gila Goldstein. We have a little bit more of the interview left to finish off, so we'll get back to that right away, and we'll finish with a few more of the preludes from this beautiful album.
Ronn, I'm going to just ask you also this question. Do you remember what music inspired you as a child? And do you remember your first experience with composition, and how does it compare to your feelings now as a composer?
Yeah, it was the things that I was exposed to first were the things that inspired me. I was first taught the accordion, and then the music on the accordion I was taught was light classical music, like Brahms's Hungarian, Mozart's Turkish march, and things like this. So it was a mixture of light classical music, real classical, more heavier classical music. When I took the piano, I now was playing Bach and Beethoven and Mozart and Chopin. So it was by and large the piano repertoire and a great deal of the popular Israeli music that Gila mentioned before. And the great Israeli composers, mainly people by the names of Sasha Argov, Moshe Vilensky, Naomi Shemer, and later Mati Kaspi, Yoni Rechter, and Natan Cohen. Those were some of the composers that we heard their music, and it was fantastic music because it was in a song form, very accessible, but of a very high level, both melodically, harmonically, and in connection with the words and the circumstance of life in Israel, which is a mixture of something completely new, but also a lot of tragedy because of wars and the influence of the area, the Middle Eastern influence, the Arabic influence, which we love, the Bedouin one from the deserts. I love the desert. I love the music that the Arabs are singing. My mother was born in Egypt, and she spoke fluent Arabic. So, Arabic music is part of it. It's a mixture of quite a few trends together.
Sounds great. Thank you. Gila, when I listened to the preludes, I definitely felt, you're just an incredible performer. That goes in. This recording is really great. Also, the sound quality is amazing. I did feel a deep connection between you and the preludes, and in addition to your artistry that creates this feeling for the listener, what were your feelings of connection to the music of
Ronn Yedidia?
As I mentioned also before, it's very, very deep feelings. I've always loved Ronn's music, and those preludes especially, I think they actually reflect all those musical genres that we both have in common. We both love very much. Because to begin with Israeli music, Israeli song, and the great romantic composers, some of the French and Russian composers, and some jazz, and actually also mentioned Hollywood music. I also play myself. I do play pop music. I play by ear. Always deeply connected to the Israeli song repertoire, and so we have that in common, and it's all reflected in this music, in those preludes. It's extremely rich. We mentioned in melodies and harmonies, but also in rhythm. The rhythmic aspect is also very, very strong. So this is what I can say. I simply just love the music, the music and the writing, the composition style.
Yes.
Can I say two things? First of all, I was not asked about my feelings about Gila's playing, and I would like to say a word about that.
Of course.
I just really want to rave about Gila because Gila is a unique, very, very unique pianist and musician and interpreter. And, you know, her poetry and her ability to draw and paint music is really singular. I don't think I know any other pianist on the planet right now that has those special attributes as they come together in her playing. And then, of course, it brings about so many things. It's so evocative, and it really enlivens dreams and fantasies and new pictures and new ideas and new hopes. Uh, and
Beautiful.
and she's very spontaneous. She never plays the same. She's by the mood, by the situation, and I would love to see many more people in today's world, especially in the mainstream, where I cannot hear those things, unfortunately, by many of the artists having those things and having the daring and the freedom to bring those things into their own playing rather than always worry about the right notes. And not that Gila doesn't worry about the right notes, she worries about them very much. But she's one of those transformative artists that there are only far and few between today.
Great. Thank you. Coming from you, I'm sure it means a lot to Gila, and it's beautiful, beautiful. I just have one last question. Are the preludes published?
Yes, they are published by Muse Press of Japan and available for purchase.
Okay, great. Gila Goldstein and Ronn Yedidia, thank you both so much for joining me today. It's been a real pleasure speaking with you and exploring this beautiful new work together. The album Yedidia 24 Preludes of Dusk and Dawn by Gila Goldstein, featuring the music of Ronn Yedidia, is out now on Parma. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yes, that was my interview with Gila Goldstein, a pianist, and Ronn Yedidia, composer. We listened to a few of the preludes from this new album called Yedidia 24 Preludes of Dusk and Dawn, and I'm going to finish this segment by playing three more of them. Number 17, called Despedida Diego. Number 18, called Bubbles. And the last one, number 24, it's called Oath and After. Welcome back to L'Istesso Tempo. We just heard 3 more preludes from 24 Preludes of Dusk and Dawn, music of Ronn Yedidia, performed by Gila Goldstein. I'll be back right after these messages.